Is the European Union witnessing its final sunset? In a diplomatic move that can only be described as a geopolitical earthquake, Donald Trump has officially drawn a line in the sand. For decades, the alliance between Washington and Brussels was considered unshakable, the bedrock of Western civilization. Today, that bedrock has cracked. It is in ruins. Sources deep inside the Beltway confirm the unthinkable. The president has refused to even acknowledge the latest high-level delegation led by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. This isn't just a cold shoulder. It is a humiliating public rejection. It is a declaration of diplomatic war. But the terrifying question keeping European leaders awake tonight isn't just why did he do it? It is what happens next. We are looking at a scenario that was previously considered impossible, a complete, immediate decoupling of American power from the European continent. What does Trump know that the public doesn't? Rumours are swirling about a secret ultimatum, delivered via back channels just hours before the public snub. Is this about unpaid NATO bills? Is it about the controversial Green Deal? Or is it something far darker, lurking within the corridors of the Berlaymont building that Trump has suddenly decided to expose? The markets are already reacting. The euro is trembling against the dollar. And in Berlin and Paris, the silence is deafening. They know the truth that the mainstream media is afraid to say. If Washington walks away, the house of cards collapses. This video will expose the grim reality behind the headlines. We are not just talking about tariffs, we are talking about survival. We are about to reveal the sequence of events that led to this historic rupture. Prepare yourselves, because the world order you knew yesterday is gone. To understand the magnitude of this collapse, we must look at the timeline. It began exactly 48 hours ago. Sources close to the transition team report that Ursula von der Leyen's team attempted to present a renewed partnership framework to the incoming administration. The document, titled Agenda 2026, proposed maintaining current trade tariffs and continuing the joint funding of the Ukraine conflict. Trump didn't just reject it, he reportedly threw it in the trash. According to a leaked memo from inside the meeting, which mainstream outlets are refusing to publish, Trump presented the EU delegation with a counter-document, the Ledger of Debt. This isn't rhetoric, this is cold, hard accounting. The file allegedly details a $350 billion trade deficit that the US has absorbed from the Eurozone over the last fiscal year alone. Trump's message was brutal and direct. The era of the American piggy bank is closed. But here is where the story turns from diplomatic spat to full-blown crisis. The specific bone of contention is Article 24 of the proposed trade agreement, which would have exempted German automakers from a new 25% tariff. Trump has explicitly targeted the German car industry. Within minutes of the news leaking that the talks had failed, the DAX index in Frankfurt plummeted by 4.5%. Volkswagen and BMW saw billions wiped off their market cap in a single afternoon. The economic engine of Europe is stalling, and Washington has just cut the fuel line. It gets worse. The security architecture of Europe is dissolving before our eyes. For years, the US has subsidized European defense through NATO. The numbers don't lie. While the US spends nearly 3.5% of its GDP on defense, major European powers like Spain and Italy have barely scraped by 1.5%. Trump knows this. He cited the burden-sharing failure as the primary reason for freezing all high-level contact with the European Commission. We are hearing reports from Brussels that panic has set in at the Berlaymont. Emergency calls between French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have been intercepted by intelligence observers, described as chaotic and accusatory. Macron is allegedly pushing for an immediate European army initiative, a desperate attempt to show strength. But without American logistics and intelligence, military experts agree Europe is a paper tiger. There is also a personal element to this rejection that cannot be ignored. Trump's team has reportedly unearthed evidence linking EU funds to specific NGOs that actively campaigned against his election. If this interference dossier is released to the public, it will be the end of von der Leyen's political career. We are talking about potential misappropriation of funds on a scale that makes previous scandals look like petty theft. The ultimatum delivered was clear. Europe has 30 days. Pay the retroactive defence dues, estimated at $80 billion. Dismantle the digital service taxes targeting American tech giants immediately. Accept the new tariffs on luxury goods and automobiles without retaliation. If these demands are not met, the US threatens to invoke Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, effectively locking European goods out of the American market. This is the nuclear option of trade war. Imagine the streets of Paris and Berlin if factories start closing next month. We are already seeing labour unions mobilising. The Yellow Vest protests in France were just a warm-up compared to the civil unrest that will explode if the European economy crashes. And make no mistake, without the US market, the recession will be instant and catastrophic. Ursula von der Leyen is currently holding an emergency summit in Brussels. The mood is funereal. They have no leverage. They have no plan B. They bet everything on a different election result, and now they are paying the price. Trump isn't negotiating, he is dictating terms of surrender. The EU is facing a three-front war, an economic collapse, a security vacuum, and a crisis of legitimacy. The clock is ticking. The 30-day deadline is not a negotiation tactic, it is a countdown. We are standing on the precipice of a geopolitical shift that historians will analyse for centuries. This is the moment the post-World War II order effectively ends. Think about the implications. If Europe bows to Trump's demands and pays the billions, the European Union admits to the world that it is not a superpower, but a vassal state, dependent and weak. The dream of European sovereignty dies instantly. But if they refuse, if pride gets in the way of pragmatism, they face the full wrath of the American economic machine. A trade war with the US, combined with the energy crisis and internal political divisions, is a suicide mission. This leaves us with the most terrifying question of all, one that nobody in the mainstream media wants to ask. Is the EU already dead, and we just haven't attended the funeral yet? Look at the reality. Without American protection, who defends the eastern flank? Without the American consumer who buys German cars and Italian fashion? The leverage is entirely on one side of the Atlantic. Trump has called the bluff. The poker game is over, and Europe is holding an empty hand. But there is another angle. Is this the shock therapy the continent needs? Is Trump actually saving the West by forcing Europe to finally stand on its own 2 feet? Or is he the executioner pulling the plug on a life support system? I want to hear from you. This is the most critical debate of our time. Question 1. Do you support Trump's America First refusal to subsidize Europe any longer? Or is this a betrayal of an ally? Question 2. Can the European Union survive a full-scale trade war with the United States? Or will this trigger a wave of exits? A Dexit or Frexit? Leave your prediction in the comments below. Do not sit on the fence. The world is changing fast, and silence is no longer an option. Will von der Leyen resign within the month? Will the markets crash next week? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because as soon as the 30-day deadline hits, we will be back with the update. You cannot afford to miss what happens next.